Hey crew, welcome to Andy Makes Sense of It. I'm Andy. In this episode, we're going to talk about the fourth quarter earnings release from Home Depot, Lowe's, and the online bookseller. We're also going to talk about fiscal year earnings for those three companies as well. They all come bundled, and we're going to go over them. So I'm now retired from Home Depot, but during my time there, I used to do this every quarter, loved it, had a decent fan base, sometimes upwards of 1,000 people would tune in to watch this crazy thing that I do. And I'm continuing it now in YouTube in my retirement. So thank you for joining in. I know it really resonated with folks. Along the way, in this channel called Andy Makes Sense of It, we're also going to learn some other things, not just earnings, but some other stuff. Please stay tuned for that. Yeah, I'm getting really good at this as I get older. So I'm wearing the money tie. Get ready. Let's get to it. All right. So fourth quarter 2025, in my opinion, was a tale of two situations. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. From that literature that some of you are familiar with, I'm sure. So it was the best of times because in fourth quarter, we beat I say beat, I'm still there. Bear with me. I feel like I still am a Home Depot associate, but I'm not. So I'm going to say we from time to time. But anyway, so Home Depot beat fourth quarter earnings and revenue expectations. That's the best of times. Record setting fiscal year revenue, highest ever. And it performed to targeted guidance in 2025. That's the best of times. The worst of times, fourth quarter revenue was down 3.8%. Fourth quarter net earnings was down 14.2% versus last year, declining customer transactions. And of course, the associates were impacted by a January 2026 reduction in force. Get to that in a second. All right, so just Andy, get to it. Let us know what happened in fourth quarter of 2025. Revenue fourth quarter 2025 was the second highest fourth quarter revenue in company history. It was 1.5 billion below fourth quarter of last year, 3.8% below that number. That number for this year, for 2025, $38,198,000,000. That's $38,000 million. That is awesome. Earnings, my favorite number, the sixth highest fourth quarter earnings in company history, 426 million below last year and 14.2% below last year. But company managed to put in a measly $2.5 billion, $2,571,000,000 in the bank. That is awesome. And let's take a look at fourth quarter revenue back to 2015. That nice, steady stair-step growth starting from 2015. Little stagger there in 2019, but then boom, the pandemic spending blew up in 2020, 2021. Slight rise in 23 and 22, and then in 23 came down a little bit. But then we had some acquisitions and mergers and things like that. So 2024 popped up into 2025, as we said before, is down about 3.8%. So that's quarterly, fourth quarter. Let's take a peek behind the curtain at fiscal year 2025 for the entire year revenue and earnings. So revenue, highest fiscal revenue in company history, $5.2 billion above last year, 3.2% above last year. That number, $164,683,000,000, $164,000 million. That is awesome. Earnings, my favorite number, fifth highest in company history, $650 million below last year. That's a 4.4% decline, but still able to put in $14,156,000,000. Guidance was spot on. The company said, hey, we're going to be right around 3%. And by golly, that's where we were as far as revenue was concerned. And so there we go. How does that compare to previous years? Before we were looking at quarters back to 2015. Now we're looking at years. So that same stair step that goes along the way, a little decline in 23, and then with mergers, acquisitions, and so forth, we're 2024, 2025. looking good. I want you to take and remember, hang on a second, I'll get back to this in a second, that $88.5 million number. Just remember that. I'm going to come back to that in a minute, that from 2015. All right. So a little bit of perspective. In the past, we've done things like, I don't know, tours, and then sports teams, and we were trying to compare and contrast and give a perspective on what that $164 billion number means. So this time we're going to do time is money. So we visualize that 164.7 billion through the lens of history. Let's do the 1 second rule. If you spent $1 every single second, in 11 and a half days, you'd spend $1 million. In 31.7 years, you would spend $1 billion. Huge difference. But then it would take 5,200 years to spend 164 billion bucks if you were spending $1 per second. So that means if you started spending a dollar a second the day the Great Pyramid of Giza was finished, right around 2560 BCE, you would still have over $14 billion left in your pocket today. That is unbelievable, ladies and gentlemen. And just remember, never, ever, ever forget that you matter. Doesn't matter what part of the organization you work in, doesn't matter where you do it, if you're at home, you're at the SSC, you're in the store, whatever. Doesn't matter how you do that work. So please be the best doer you could be. You're a part of a team that is absolutely crushing it. You do matter. And you say, Andy, you can say that, but how do you know? I know because these dumb numbers don't make themselves up. You make this happen, and you know you did. All right, so let's talk about November. What happened in November in the first month of the fourth quarter? Home Depot launched AI-powered blueprint takeoffs. Really cool tool for our pros to be able to use. Here's a little demonstration of it. I'm in the blueprint takeoffs. I can say, hey, bathroom update with shower conversion, lighting, fixtures, all other stuff, and bing, bang, boom, AI does its job, and it gives you recommendations for those things. Didn't go into that, but that's how quickly it works, and that's what it does, and it's absolutely fantastic. It got a ton of press when Home Depot rolled it out in November. Then in December, speaking of press, holy cow, the creator portal connects influencers with Home Depot enthusiasts, and it's a great tool for those folks to use. Quite frankly, I didn't know that this was even a thing until this came out. But if you think about it, all the other folks that have YouTube channels and TikToks and whatnot that talk about home improvement, if we can connect them to the Home Depot business and make a little money on the side for each one of us, that would be a great thing. So there is a report. I can't talk anymore. Sorry. There is a creator portal out there for that. So there are folks out there that are already participating. Their names are there: Dude Perfect, Trinity, Rodman, Dad Advice from Bo. Those folks are all creators. They are dealing with Home Depot, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So that was December. Then in January, this is, all right, so I don't even know if you guys even know about this. I don't even know how to pronounce this. Is it Vevor? Enters U.S. physical retail with first brick and mortar store in Houston. And the reason I did it is because I even mention it is because of all of the press that came around it. Oh, Home Depot and Lowe's have a new competitor and it's going to be bad for them. So a little bit about this company. They were founded in 2007 as an eBay seller. And then they began selling on Amazon in 2013 and then launched their own Vevor.com in 2020. It operates in 50 countries, has a network of 200 plus global warehouses, and a catalog of over 40,000 products. And get this, spanning tools, outdoor equipment, home improvement solutions. Hey, competition is a good thing. The more the merrier. We'll see how that goes. But hey, keep your eye on it. I still own quite a few shares of Home Depot stock. I would hate to see anything bad happen with that. Anyway, so keep your eye on it. And then also in January, we had the RIF, and I did have something to say about it. So I posted this video that I did both in this channel as well as on LinkedIn. Man, got tens of thousands of people that watched it. It was really cool. But then weeks later, Lowe's made their own announcement and did pretty much the same thing. So regardless if you were impacted or not, or if you just like to see how I made sense of it, give it a 10 minutes and go see what's going on. Okay, let's get down to it and why we're here today to review fourth quarter earnings results as well as the fiscal year 2025. We got lots of press. And remember, headlines don't always tell the story or the whole story. Make sure you do your own research and look into things. There's a headline here that says Home Depot tops Q4 earnings estimate, stocks dip on sales miss. The revenue did decline versus last year, but we're above estimate, so that's a beat. And so you should read, it should read, HD tops both, HD beats both top and bottom line expectations because that's what you did. And then Mr. Decker always has something good to say. And pretty much in a bottom line, what this says is, hey, great work in the battle for $2025. In Q4, we did what we said we were going to do, and that's reflected in the yearly numbers. There was stable demand. There were no storm bumps. Let's move on. Lowe's. Lowe's never gets as much press as Home Depot does. But while they did beat the top line expectations, revenue, they missed bottom line profit. We'll get into that and the numbers in a second. Mr. Ellison, the CEO of Lowe's, said, uses a lot of words usually. You can tell the huge difference between Ted's few words to get right to the point and Marvin going on about whatever Marvin goes on about. But he's saying the strong results were a beat on revenue, but a miss on earnings. I'm not sure what market share Marvin is taking, but it's not from Home Depot. Anyhow, hey, as we review these, remember there's really four things that we look at here. We look at revenue, aka also known as sales. Revenue includes sales, but that's not everything. So obviously store and online sales are bundled in there. That's the big kahuna. Sales from subsidiaries, so SRS and GMS are included in there as well. There's all kinds of fees. There's credit fees. There's rental fees. There's this fee. Anytime you bring in cash, that is called revenue. So that's what's included in the revenue numbers. When we talk about comps, comp store sales, aka comps. If you're in the office, you'll hear comps a lot. How are we comping? If a store was open in 2024 and was open 2025, comparable. If it was closed in 24 but open in 25, so a new store, not comparable. Can't do the comparison. If it was open in 24 and closed in 25, then not comparable either. So when we talk about comps, it's really only stores that are open last year and this year, in 24 and 25. So we're also going to talk about earnings. So this is the dollars that are available after revenue is after expenses is subtracted from the revenue dollars that we talked about above. So remember SWAT it. SWAT it stands for, and it's something I came up with a while back when I was talking about how Home Depot makes money. Sell something for more than you paid for it while covering your costs associated with selling it. And include extra dollars, take it to the bank, invest in your company, talent, reward them. And then the last set of numbers we're going to talk about is earnings per share, aka EPS. The math is in the name. It's the earning dollars divided by the number of shares that are out there in the market. So for example, HD, there's that $2.571 billion number. There are 995 million shares out there. So you do the math, and our earnings per share in Q4 was $2.58. So those are the numbers we're going to talk about. Let's get to it. So fourth quarter revenue. So we go back to 2021 on fourth quarter revenue. You got Home Depot and you got Lowe's. There's that 3.8% drop, and there's that 10.9% increase, a double-digit increase that Lowe's experienced in 2025. So that's what was talking about, what Marvin was talking about. That's what the street is talking about. Hey, they beat the expectations on the top end. Of course, we did too. But remember, when we take a look at this, we also look at a trend, and the trend goes back to 2021 as well. So revenue by quarter back to Q1 of 2021, tagged with a trend line. I know which group I would rather be a part of. Let's take a look at comps. Those are sales comps between stores. Where's the Lowe's? Oh, that's right. These are total comp store sales. Lowe's only has stores in the United States. For Home Depot, total comp store sales also includes the stores in Mexico and the stores in Canada. So at a 0.4% increase there in comp store sales, and for the total, and then for just the U.S., we were at 0.3. They had a 1.3% increase versus previous year for comp store sales. And then earnings, my favorite number. Everybody's dipping on earnings. And the reason for that, in my opinion, is we're trying to control costs and try to limit the impact of tariffs and expenses. My golly, if your expenses are up, Home Depot's expenses are up. So all of those things factor in. There's just not that much money that is coming in, has in the past, but that's going to change. All right, so then let's look at the last number, earnings per share. So earnings per share numbers, we came in at $2.58 a share. Remember, we talked about that math before, which was a 14.6% decline over previous year. However, the expected number from the street was 253. So boom, we beat expectations on the bottom line because we had higher earnings per share than what was expected. And we even beat the whisper number. And the whisper number is, oh my God, on the street. If you're thinking 253, if they get hit 256, oh my God, that was just be incredible. So think of it as a stretch goal. So we even beat the stretch goal. So boom, good for us. The other guys, $1.78, $1.95 expected, 202 is the whisper number. They were down 7.8. They missed on earnings, so they missed bottom line. They missed earnings per share. Now, one of the things we also look at is selected sales data, and we publish this, and it's always a good thing to take a look at. The two at the bottom are the ones we want to focus on. Customer transactions in millions. That's the number of physical transactions that happened through our registers through the course of the fourth quarter. And there were 8.5% less of them as there were for the fourth quarter of last year. So fewer customers spent a little more. So the average ticket went up from $89 to $91. So a 2.4% increase. So fewer customers are spending more. Now, let's go take a peek at what the online bookseller did. I try not to mention their name. Our profit margins are getting tighter. We've seen double digits here in the past, but now Home Depot's at 6.7 and the blue folks are at 5, or below 5. So if we concentrate on that, and what this graph shows us is we had that $38.198 billion revenue number in fourth quarter. The income from that was $2.561 billion at 6.7%. So Lowe's, $20.5 billion, not even $1 million, but that's a 4.9% gross margin number, net margin number. And then holy cow, $213 billion for the online bookseller, and $21 billion. Holy cow, $21 billion they put in the bank. That's a 9.9% return. I dug into their P&L, and what I'd like to do is divide their numbers into segments to make it more apples to apples. So there's Home Depot's same thing that we looked at before, the 6.7% with the 38 billion and the 2 billion, and Lowe's exact same numbers with their 4.9%. But what I did with the online bookseller is I said, hey, just give me North American product sales, and that's what this is. So North American product sales, they had $127 billion. They put $9 billion in the bank from that, so a 7.7% return. Their international product sales, $50 billion. They put $882 million in the bank. That's a 1.7% return. Why get out of bed? It's 1.7%. And then that AWS thing. And you guys know, I always forget, it's average web services. No, awful web service. And I can't remember which one. It's either awful web services or average web services is, I think, what they go with. So their average web services returns 29.7%. Are you kidding me? We'd love to be able to make 29.7% on something. So that's where the majority of their profit comes from. period. That's the end of Q4. In a second, we're going to go take a look at fiscal year 2025. Yes, let's get to fiscal year 2025. All right, so found this. You guys know that I love memes. And so I found this and thought it was funny. Old Ron Swanson, I know more than you, going into a Lowe's. And then after the fantastic win by the hockey team, the U.S. national hockey team in the Olympics, Dunkin' Donuts comes up with this slam for our Canadian friends. And I'm sorry, my Canadian friends, I apologize in advance, but this has made me laugh, so I wanted to share. So, all right, 2025 revenue for the fiscal year 2025. There's that $164 billion number from Home Depot. Lowe's was at $86 billion. They had a 3.1% increase. We had 3.2%, and that's good news. But then, I also added. Remember, we looked at the trend line before with the quarter by quarter sales. So this is new yearly revenue with trend line. So yeah, I would much rather be in the orange trend line than the blue one, although they are both going up. Remember, asked you guys, hey, remember that $88.5 billion number for revenue from 2015? That's what that is. And I wanted to point this out. Man, the Lowe's is so close, 86.2. They're almost where Home Depot was 11 years ago. So that's a thing that I noticed. So let's take a look at comps for the year. For some reason, Lowe's doesn't publish yearly comps, but Home Depot does. So in 2025, 0.3% comparable store increase year over year. For total, that's US, Mexico, Canada. And then just for US, we had a 0.5% increase in comparable store sales for 2025 versus 2024. Now, 2025 earnings, you've heard me say this a million times, is my favorite number because I love the net gains. I also think about it as it applies to me, as it applies to you, and you've heard me say this a million times too. I don't care what you make, I care what you keep. It's probably another reason why we need another episode. We got to make sense of that together. But that's what this is. That's the money that Home Depot put $14 billion in the bank, and Lowe's did 6.6. So 4.4% drop versus previous year. Profits are getting thinner, is what I'm saying. Anyway, earnings per share. We talked about that earnings per share number and how that's calculated. But for the year, Home Depot at $14.23 and Lowe's at $11.85. So those are numbers that we look at too. Still, strong companies doing very, very well. We also have, we also look at these selected sales and we concentrate on the last two. Customer transactions were down slightly for the year, just like they were for the quarter, and the average ticket was up. So fewer customers spent a little more. So is that tariffs? Is that inflation? What is that? Probably all of the above. All right, so let's take a look at the online bookseller and their fiscal year 2025 results. Yikes, almost $717 billion in revenue. We're going to get to more of the 717 in a second, but at this rate, they'll be over $1 trillion in less than 3 years if this keeps up the way that it has been going. They also have that net return of 10.8%. Remember, so this is the exact same numbers we were looking at before, but it's all on one for Home Depot and Lowe's. So $164 billion in revenue and $14 billion in net profit is an 8.6% return. For Lowe's, $86 billion and $6 billion in the bank, that's a 7.7% return. And then for the online bookseller, almost $717 billion, almost $78 billion in the bank. That's a 10.8% return. That's humongous. How is that possible? We're going to look into it. So we saw in the previous slide when we were talking about Home Depot, Lowe's, and the online bookseller. I dug into this. I dug into their P&L. So let's divided this into segments. So online product sales in North America $426 billion, $28 billion was profit as a result of that for a 6.7% return. Then international product sales, 161 billion, $4.6 billion in the bank. That's a 2.8% return. So those two things together return right about 5.7% if you group. So their product sales returns about 5.7%, which puts them right in the ballpark for retail. But then we get to that AWS thing, and it's what do we say? Is it average or awful web services? Whichever one it is, 34.4% by itself for the year. $128 billion. And I saw some articles and I heard some finance folks saying, well, if you take that out of Amazon, it's no longer, they're not the biggest. Well, yeah, they are. It's just, it came from a different source. The revenue came from a different source. Sure, it's not retail, but it's still part of the company and it's still revenue dollars that they generate. So you got to include it. So that being said, AWS is responsible for 57%, more than half of their net profits, but it's only 18% of their revenue. All right, cool. So that's how each one of them looks. Home Depot, Lowe's, we look at the North American sales, then we look at international sales, and we look at AWS. Now, here's the big announcement. I don't know if you guys saw this. Amazon surpasses Walmart as the largest company by revenue in the United States. That happened a few weeks ago. And I wanted to dig into a little more. And we've been talking about this for a while, how we have seen that the online bookseller is catching up to Amazon sales. So it finally has happened. I did want to make sense in it. So I dug into the archives just for you. I did it for me, but for you, I want to show it to you too. So I want to see how the previous holder of the largest company by revenue has done since 1999. I began with 1999 because it's the first year the online bookseller appeared on the Fortune list. And it was also the year that Home Depot was added to the Dow Jones Industrial Average Index. And then it was also, we can still party like it's 1999. That was another reason too, of course. But nice, steady growth pattern. It's been around, company's been around forever. But then, holy cow, you go look at the weasels from the online bookseller. It's incredible growth from them over the course of since 1999. I didn't help. Who else? Raise your hands. Has never ordered a product to be delivered to their home from the online bookseller. It was this guy. The online bookseller first appeared in the Fortune list. And did you know it's not just the Fortune 500, it's the Fortune 1000? They have the top 1,000 companies. But anyway, everybody goes by Fortune 500. But so they debuted in 1999, and they were number 807. The 807th largest company was the online bookseller in 1999. They had $1.6 billion in sales, as you can see. In 2002, Walmart became number one with $220 billion in sales for that year. So in 2002, where were you? I was at number 45 Safeway, where I worked for a company that had $34 billion in sales, and they were, like I said, number 45. They were in the Fortune 50 back in 1999. In 2002, the online bookseller was number 492, so they cracked the Fortune 500 with revenue of $3.1 billion, and the rest, they say, is history. But when Walmart became number one in 2002, I remember all of the financial folks and the articles in the paper, and oh my God, we're going from an industrial base to a service-based economy. So before that happened, every number one company was a manufacturer, Ford, General Motors, or they were an energy company, ExxonMobil, companies, U.S. Steel, people that manufactured things. And I remember it was a doom and gloom. Oh my God, this is terrible. It's the end of times. We went from a manufacturing economy to a service-based economy. And looking back, it really hasn't been that bad when you think about it. So, and if you're curious, because I was, where was Home Depot during all of that? I also went back in time takes a long time to do these things. It takes a lot of work. I don't have a lot else to do. But so I went back and I added Home Depot in there to give you an idea of where these three behemoths within the retail industry have been. And my gosh, it's just absolutely incredible. So that being said, I'm done. We've reviewed second quarter. We've reviewed fourth quarter, and we've reviewed fiscal year 2025. If you wouldn't mind, please pass this around. I don't have the ability to put these things on your calendar anymore, so I sure would appreciate if you could do some evangelizing for me. Ooh, maybe that's another episode. So maybe subscribe, add a comment. Love the comments. They keep me going in my old age. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.